and welcome to the Beef Age, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Drystock advisor Terry Carroll and beef farmer John Phelan in a two-part series on making quality silage. On the first episode, John and Terry highlight all the top tips related to grazing, fertilising and closing silage ground. I first asked John to tell me about your farming system.
We're a beef and tillage enterprise here in Blancheville, Dunbell in County Kilkenny. Our beef enterprise really consists of 62 hectares, all grass. 26 hectares is our silage ground and 36 hectares would be our main grazing block. It's a store to beef system, so we're buying in roughly 300 to 350 good continental heifers, age ranging between 1.5 to 2 year olds. We graze them for a period and then house them roughly around the end of October. They're weighed and penned according to when we think their finishing dates are projected. And then roughly speaking, half of that stock that we buy in will be finished from the shed and half will be stored for the winter and go back to grass. And that's the stock that we have out at the moment grazing our silage ground.
So finishing these 300 or 350 cattle, making quality silage is important to you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the foundation of anyone's success, I think. Like it costs just as much to make good quality silage than it does to make bad quality silage. So the finishing cattle is a tricky game at the best of times, especially in the last couple of years. So trying to maximize your profits on having good quality silage is the key. So we're aiming for, like most people are probably aiming for 72% DMD plus, but we're actually probably targeting 75, 76. That's our target, and hopefully we can achieve that. Like for example, our store heifers they're on a kilo of meal along with ad lib silage. They're doing 0.8 of kilo while they're being stored over the winter, so it's good. And if they were down towards 65 DMD, we would have to supplement maybe another 3 or 4 kilos to get the same weight gain. And on our finishing shed, silage won't just do it on its own, but they're on 16 kilos of fresh weight silage and they're on 8 kilos of native grain from Ireland. So that's what we're doing, and they're doing about maybe 1.2 to 1.3 live weight, so which is quite good. We're happy with that. We can only do that if we have good quality silage.
Yeah, definitely, especially achieving 0.8 of a kilo over the store period on 1 kilo meal with that high quality silage. What's your plan for this year for making top quality silage?
Sure, our target, as kind of spoken there, our target would be 75 probably plus. The only probably way that we can do that is, we believe, is to kind of graze all our silage ground first, trying to get rid of any of that rough, maybe dead material that might have died over the winter. And then we believe it kind of promotes growth and promotes those tillering new leafy grass that hopefully that we can harvest and preserve well and feed back then out into the winter.
And when do you hope to close the silage ground?
So we're hoping to close the silage ground around the 25th of this month. We will have it all grazed by then, fingers crossed. We have 50% of it grazed at the moment, and stock actually, we just with the weather forecast, we brought stock in this evening just with the kind of rain and stuff that's due, but they'll go back out maybe again Thursday and continue on grazing the silage ground. So yeah, 25th is our target, hoping then our harvest date following on then 8 weeks from that would be around the 10th to 15th of May.
And what fertiliser do you plan to apply, John?
Yeah, so our fertiliser plan is simple enough, really. We have the slurry from our finishing and store units, so that was the first thing that will go out. So 2,500 gallons of slurry will go out straight away on the 25th, and that actually goes out in a trailing shoe. So it's kind of, we're trying to use as much technologies that are out there as well. But then we will follow that up 10 days later with 80 units of protected urea and sulfur.
Once the crop is closed, how do you manage it?
Yeah, so really after it's closed, the hard part is done, and once it's slurried and fertilized, you can let it do its own thing. But before it's slurried, all grounds will be walked and rolled just to make it a little bit easier on the harvester. We wouldn't spray this time of the year. If we thought we needed to spray, or we had a dock or a weed problem, we'd leave it to the back end, maybe after a second cut, when grass demand for our farm is not on peak, that we don't need grass at that time of the year. We just have, where silage ground's coming back in, we have enough with our own grazing block. So yeah, there's not a huge amount to do then, really, Catherine.
That's great, John. Thanks very much. Terry, what's the first things farmers need to consider at the moment?
Hi, Catherine. Look, I mean, what we'd be encouraging people to do is, ask yourself, what quality silage do you want to have next winter? And if you want to have the top quality silage that John just have regularly, and in 75 to maybe up near 80% DMD, north of 75, you have to work out what your cutting date. And what we'd be saying to farmers, like what John has said to you earlier, if you're aiming for cutting around 15th of May, now look, if that's the 20th of May, it's not the end of the world, but those intermediate to late heading ryegrasses start heading out from around then, and when those seed heads start to appear, you're probably still up near 75% DMD, but they appear very quick and your DMD drops. So we're saying if your target cutting date is the 15th of May, that's suggesting that we want to be closing around about the 20th to the 25th of March. And while I say that, it's easy enough to probably make quality silage at any stage of the year if you take light crops and cut after maybe 5 or 6 weeks, or cut prior to heading of grass. We're trying to get quantity as well as quality in what's an expensive crop in making silage. So we want to have a high yield of super quality silage, and that's why we're encouraging farmers to sort of close by the 20th to 25th of March at the latest, to aim to cut by the 12th to the 20th of May at latest, to guarantee your quality.
And when should silage ground be grazed, Terry?
Yeah, look, this is the issue, and February was a disaster of a month for grazing. So look, March, people have got out this week and last week with stock. That could change with weather. We'd be absolutely aiming to graze silage ground before we close it. Now, if you said to me or asked me, does that have to be grazed? Well, look, if you have it reasonably well grazed prior to the winter period and not much grew on it over winter, for example, and I mean, I know up in Grange, they certainly will fertilise some fields without grazing them, and are making excellent silage. But as John said, where you have a week of grass in particular, it's the target is absolutely graze that to ensure that there's none of that dead material that is going to be brought in the crop, which will lower your DMD. So ideally, graze that. It'll probably be the start of grazing last week for some people, given that we're later coming out. Graze that, get off it by the 20th of March, or if you're up to a few days later than that, that's fair enough. Do your slurry, and probably a week after the slurry, put out your bagged fertilizer, as John does every year, and leave it that sort of 7 weeks. If you close it the 25th of March, you actually have 8 weeks up to the 20th of May, which is more than enough to grow a crop.
You touched on it there. There is a fear among farmers when you're applying fertilizer that you're applying too much nitrogen to the crop. So what fertilizer should farmers be applying?
Yeah, look, I suppose a couple of things influence that. Obviously, if you go out with slurry, we consider that our first fertilizer. So a super source of P and K, and spreading it the way John spreads it with the trail and sure dribble bar, like a lot of farmers are nowadays. Probably every 1,000 gallons of slurry per acre there is giving you maybe 10, 11, 12 units of nitrogen. So absolutely factor that in. If you happen to be going with 3,000 gallons, you could have north of 30 units gone out. A good ryegrass sward of, maybe reseeded the last few years and strong ryegrass content, those crops probably require maybe 125 kilos per hectare or up the, a strong 100 units of nitrogen per acre, they can take it, and maybe even a little more. But balance between your nitrogen applied in the slurry and what you're applying in the bag. And, some people would split the bag nitrogen. There's no great science showing that there's any advantage to it. But, particularly if you're going with the bag nitrogen, maybe towards late March, there isn't nothing wrong with splitting it, or not really wrong with putting it all out together. But we just say, get your P and K is correct via slurry or compound fertilizer, and your nitrogen then will be dictated by, I suppose, the quality of your sward and the freshness of it and the ryegrass content.
Potassium is in high demand for the silage crop, Terry. What P and K does the crop require?
Yeah, K is absolutely, and I suppose it's the one nutrient that gets depleted very quick in silage. But look, and we'd see lots of soil samples coming back where fields might be very low in K. Look, you can't do the build-up and the requirement for the crop in that one application. We're careful with the amount of K, potassium fertilizer, that goes on a crop of silage. So we're saying typically a good 90 kilos per hectare, which is 70 to 75 units per acre of K, is typically enough for that first cut. Your field might need a lot more than that. We're advising not to put it out for that first, for the crop. If you're applying there the 25th of March or whatever, if you're very low, you'll have to replenish after the crop. Put out just that amount. P units then, typically, it's depending on your soil test there, it could be anywhere from 15 maybe to 25 units per acre. And obviously the nitrogen, as I said, it could be 80 units on a knoll sward, and it could be a strong 100 on a ryegrass sward.
Terry, in relation to spraying for weeds, particularly docks, how would farmers assess the crop and what impact can they have on quality?
Yeah, and look, I suppose the very common weed in silage fields, it's docks. I mean, docks prosper where a lot of slurry goes back out in fields and where there's a bit of an openness in the sward, and that's typically a silage sward. So look, at docks, absolutely, I think the old guideline there, if you measure out a 5 meter by 7 meter sort of rectangle block, and if you get 5 docks in that 7 by 5 meter rectangle, that's a 5% infection of docks in your field, which is a 5% yield reduction. And we all go by the roads and you see some fields that would be way heavier than that. And some people would say, well, sure, look, what's the real harm with docks? I suppose the harm with docks maybe twofold. You're cutting maybe in that mid to 20 to May, your docks will be leafy enough, but yet they're only probably about 60% DMD or whatever. So they're a lot lower in quality than your grass silage, obviously. And the real big problem with them is they've shielded out grass there. So the yield reduction, where you went to have your maybe 11 ton per acre crop, you could be down to 9.5 tons per acre crop, if we're talking in tons per acre. So significant yield reduction from docks, and when they're there, they only sort of get worse.
So definitely something to be assessed, Terry.
Yeah, and I mean, we'd say, look, at target your spraying. You don't want to, you're probably spraying, when there's that nice leaf there, when there may be sort of 10 to 20 centimeters height or across. It's a typical when it's a nice leafy sort of a dock for spraying and have your weather right. So that's typically maybe, a good 3 to 4 weeks, maybe into your, probably 3 weeks into the growing of the crop.
Finally, Terry, what are the 3 main things that farmers need to focus on now in the coming month?
Regarding silage there, I suppose, look at, if you're going to graze your silage grounds, that's brilliant, and we encourage that, and it should be done. Try and graze it and get off it by whatever, you want quality silage for some stock, or maybe all your stock for the winter. We want to have the quality with the quantity, so try and be off your fields there. We're saying by the 25th of March, the latest. Get your slurry out. If that's going out, get your fertilizer out shortly after that, with a target cutting date of around the middle of May. Weather will dictate when you cut it, but if you don't have made the plans to be in a position to cut it the middle of May, well, the weather might matter if you haven't the crop ready or growing at that stage.
That's great, Terry. Thanks very much, Terry and John, for joining me on the show.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Talk to you again.
Some really interesting insights from Terry and John. Make sure to join me next month for the second part of the interview when I cover harvesting the silage crop. In the meantime, thanks for listening, and thanks to Terry and John for joining me on the show. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.